Hey everyone, it's Master Berkey coming to you with ATA Tournaments 301, How to Become a Champion. If you're looking for information on whether you should go to a tournament or how tournaments work, check out our 101 and 201 videos. This video in particular is designed for any of you students and parents who are looking to take your tournament experience to the next level, going from just competing to trying to earn a title, whether that's a state, district, or world championship event. So this video will go in depth on how you can become one of those competition families and what you should know before you get started. So first off, it's so important that as we move into high-level competition, I want to bring everything back to why we join martial arts and why we wanted to attend tournaments in the first place. You guys have all seen those other sport parents, whether that's, the stereotypical hockey dad, the soccer mom, the gymnastics parent. We don't do that at our school or in our organization, and we really want to make sure that you are always representing not just your school, but your family and your student well. You probably got them into martial arts to learn things like discipline, confidence, respect, or focus. And you want to make sure that every tournament experience that they have really helps hold all those things in to what they do in their daily lives. Now, remember, tournaments do a lot of great things for your student. Number one, they can boost confidence regardless of the result. We have this happen when we let them focus on learning from both their triumphs and their mistakes. Making mistakes is actually where you learn the most, so don't shy away from those moments. Those are great opportunities for your kids to get better. Making friends and meeting new people from across the country is always a great part of tournament, but especially on the championship circuit, you will start to meet the same people at every event. It really lets you build a group of friends that you can see every single time you go compete. Being a part of the championship program will help increase your child's motivation to train. It'll help them get inspired by other competitors, and tournaments are just really fun. They're the best part for me of being a part of the ATA organization, is being able to see everyone competing at their best. It's just something that I love. Now, first thing to know is the tournament season. The ATA tournament season will start in July at the World Expo, currently held in Phoenix, Arizona. Now, there's a misconception sometimes that tournaments, you have to be a world champion to be competing at the World Championships. But the World of Expo event is actually a bookend tournament. It finishes one year and starts the next. And the tournament that starts the next year is the one that everyone can compete in, regardless of if you are a tiny tiger or a world champion competitor. Now, this tournament season will go from July until April 30th of the following year, where the tournament point earning season will end. There will be a district championships held about 30 to 45 days after in the month of June. And then again, world championships in Phoenix are held at the end of July as a way to both end the current season and start the next one. As a reminder, your tournament age will be determined by the age that you are on December 31st of that tournament year. This is done to prevent students from having to switch divisions halfway through the year. A lot of times parents get concerned and they say, why is my 14-year-old competing in the 15 to 17-year-old division? That's, seems like a big jump. But remember, everyone goes through these same rules. So there are some 17-year-olds who don't compete in that division because they're actually competing with the 18 to 29-year-olds. So wherever your birthday falls on December 31st, right in the middle of that tournament year, that's the age that you will compete as the entire season. Now, this is really important because if you compete in the wrong division, those points will not be moved over or adjusted for you. So just make sure to keep track of your student's age to know which tournament event and division they should compete in. Now, within the divisions, there are age divisions, number one, so 8 and under, 9 and 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 to 17, and then it basically goes by decades from there. Gender divisions of male and female are split up as well. And finally, you'll have rank divisions of color belts, first degrees, second and third, fourth and fifth, and then finally the master's division on the way up. Now, color belts, you should know that you are competing against all color belts. There is only a singular division for all color belts in the state championship, district champion level. And if you are a red belt, you may be competing against someone who sometimes you won't see at tournament because they're competing in the camouflage green belt, purple belt ring. Eventually, you will all come together, but that's just something to keep note on. If you are a recommended belt, so a recommended black belt in the color belt division, you have the option of competing in either the the color belt division or the black belt division. That is up to you to decide. So when your belt is half red, half black, you can decide whether you want to be a color belt or a black belt. But whichever area you compete in, that's the one that I would recommend sticking with for the entire season. If you're a second degree recommended, remember you must compete up into that black belt ring. So the moment that you're a second degree recommended, you are in that second degree division. So it's just something to keep in mind before scheduling your midterms and your testings. Now, black belts, I want you to know you are allowed to compete up. What that means is if I am currently a first degree black belt and I don't want to delay my training, I don't want to miss any testings, and I know that in the middle of the year I'm going to be testing for that second degree recommended or that second degree decided, you have the ability to compete in the higher black belt degree division. That way your points don't get lost throughout the year. Now remember, before you get to district championships or world championships, you must have earned that degree for your point to count. So make sure that you're not competing so high up that you don't leave yourself any room in case you have a no change at testing. Color belts, this rule does not apply to you. Even if you're expecting to be a black belt mid-year, you are not allowed to compete in the black belt division until you are a recommended black belt. So you might want to consider whether or not you want to hold off on testings and stay a recommended black belt until the end of the season, or if you want to hold off competing until you're a little bit, further along in your training. That way you're not going to have to hold up your personal rank. Age is another factor to consider here. So for example, in the 15 to 17-year-old division, there is some advantage to being 17 years old because you will have gone through a larger change in your personal development with your body. So if your child is deciding on whether you want to be a champion and you don't know whether you want to compete this year or the year after that, sometimes it's important to take your age into consideration and to just note that the development difference between someone at the bottom of the division and the top of the division may be different. Now, that is not always a factor. There are some advantages to being young. You're a little bit more flexible. You might be a little bit quicker on your feet because you know what your body's doing. So it's just something to take into consideration and to decide what works best for you. Now, there's a couple different things that you need to do to be eligible to compete for tournament. The first one for all three levels you can see in state, district, and world is you must be in the leadership program. So if you are not currently on the leadership team, make sure that you talk to your program director or chief instructor about the goal that you have of being a champion, because your points will not be counted by the ATA tournament department unless you are part of that leadership program. Within the state championships, you can start at any time. So even if we are mid-season and there's a tournament coming up and you've decided, I want to go for state champ, you can join at any point in the tournament season. It doesn't matter. The only thing that you need to know is that in order to win, you must have the most points by the end of the season. Now, this is similar in my understanding to the way a NASCAR works. So it doesn't really matter if in the last tournament you beat your competitors or not. What matters is how did you do throughout the entire circuit. You earn points for first, second, and third place, which we'll go over in a moment, and the person who has the most points at the end of the season is the one that will be crowned state champion. Now that person will get to wear black letters on the back of their uniform, or if you are an XMA competitor, your letters will be silver just to make sure they're more visible. Now in district champion, again, you have to be in the leadership program, and similar to state champ, you can start competing for this title at any point. The big difference is that rather than this being a point earning circuit, this is a final singular tournament that you have to win at in order to get those blue letters on the back of your uniform. So in order to be eligible to earn an invitation to compete at district championships, you must be in your state top 10. That means one of the best 10 competitors of the state that you're in for that particular event. So you may be state top 10 in forms, but you might be the worst competitor in the entire state in sparring, and it makes no difference at all. As long as you are in for that one event, that's the one that you get to compete in. Again, there will be a final tournament, and the person who wins is crowned district champ and gets to wear those blue letters on their back. Now, world championships, you do have to be a black belt. So if you're a color belt, world champion is not for you yet, but it is a goal that you can definitely strive for. The world tournament is currently held in Phoenix, Arizona in July, and in order to compete in that tournament, there are two different ways that you can do it. Number one, if you are a district champion as a black belt, you will get an automatic invitation that year into the tournament. So for example, if earlier in June, I won a district title for forms as a black belt. I can compete in the forms division only of the World Championship division to compete for the world title. It's a way that you can get into that high level competition without necessarily having to travel around. So if finances are tight for your family or you just don't have the time to commit to going to tournaments every single weekend, as long as you go to 1 or 2 tournaments and place well, you will probably be in state top 10. If you can win at district championships, you have an invitation to compete for world championships. For those of you from our Elkhart location who know Erzabeth Gallegos, this is how she won her first tournament, her first world championship title. She got in through a district champion win and then took the title from that point on. Now, that being said, we don't recommend planning on this route because it is very risky. There's some inherent risks with judging, whether they agree or disagree with what you're doing, and placing every bet on that one final tournament in June before World Championships is not the way that I would like to play if that is a goal that I have to get those red letters. The other way that you can get into the tournament is by being in the world top 10. What that means is that your points have earned you one of the top 10 spots in the entire world tournament circuit. Now, if you are in the top 10, regardless of your position, you will get to compete, but the top 4 placeholders will get to hold what are determined as the premium positions. What that means is that the person in 4th place will go 4th to last, 3rd place will go 3rd to last, 2nd will go 2nd to last, and 1st place will go very last. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that those people have a better chance at winning. I've seen just as many people win going first as I have seen going last. But what it does mean is that you'll get to be able to see all of your competition, and the judges will know exactly what they're looking for by the time we get to those final competitors. Now, while you are earning your state title, you're going to have to earn points through the tournaments. And as those points show up on your ATA profile, it's going to be your responsibility to track them. So first off, again, you must be in leadership. There is no backtracking of points. So if you decide to hold off on joining leadership, you do well at a tournament, get first in every event, and you decide, you know what, that was great, I think I want to compete for championship, there is no way to re-earn those points. So make sure that you have all of your leadership materials turned into your instructor, preferably 2 weeks prior to the tournament. That way we can make sure you are ready to earn those tournament points. Now, once points get updated, ATA does a great job of, once a tournament's finished, getting all the data in, plugging it into their national system, and you will see an update happen usually once every week. Now, once the update happens, you have 30 days to make any corrections to that tournament. So what that means, for example, if I went to a tournament on February 15th, and the results were posted on the national website on March 1st, I would have until March 31st in order to make any changes to that point division. So if I notice that my points are wrong, it is my responsibility to contact them right away. Now, if your tournament is at the end of the season, sometime in April, just know that the point cutoff happens on March 5th. So, I'm sorry, on May 5th. So be very aware of that. That way you don't miss any opportunity to have your points corrected. Even if it's not your mistake, if it's ATA's mistake, if it's your judge's mistake, they switched a name, something like that, you must be the one to let ATA know that your points are incorrect. Now, you can monitor your points in 2 different ways. The first one is by making sure you have an account at atamartialarts.com. You can make this with your ATA number. This will allow you to know that when you've competed for points, it'll have a personal profile that says you went to this tournament and you earned this many points. Now, the other thing that I would do is I would cross-check that with the full tournament standings that you can find on ATA Martial Arts, Events, Tournament standings. Now, the reason I would recommend this is because at times your points may get put in an incorrect division. This is especially true if you are competing up in rank. So, for example, you're a 3rd degree competing as a 4th degree, or if your ring gets combined. So sometimes in the color belt divisions, we might combine the white belts through, yellow belts, or we combine green belts through blue belts. In the adult black belt divisions, the same kind of thing can happen, where you might get combined with an age group that's below or above you, or maybe even a rank group to make sure that you have full competition. Those things increase the chances of your points being in the wrong division, so it's important to look at the standings to see if you have your name appearing somewhere else, because even though they might be on your profile, they could be in the incorrect division. Again, this is your responsibility to correct the errors. Your school's program director and chief instructor, while they may assist you, they cannot be responsible for it. There's a lot of students to track along with their own competitions. So if you're wanting to be a competitor, again, it's your responsibility. You can email the tournament division at tournaments@ataonline.com. We recommend putting as much information as possible. Your name, your ATA number, the date, your division, the ring number if you remember it, and the correction that you would like made. As always, parents, we recommend you keep just a little notebook of who was in the ring, how did they place, who got first, second, and third. Having that information available can definitely help if there's an issue. Now, with your points, earning points for a championship division, the biggest thing that many new competitors don't realize is the division of point classes. What this means is that there are different ways to earn tournament points depending on what types of tournaments you go to. So you can see here at the top, there is a total point score of 99 points. I'm just circling my pointer over that. And there are 4 different areas that we can be in: the World Expo, the Class A AA Nationals, Class A and B Regionals, and Class C in school. Now, the first one we're going to talk about is over here at the World Expo. Now, the World Expo is a one-time event at the beginning of the season. And as you can see, the point values are quadrupled compared to a regional tournament. That means a first place will earn you 20 points, a second place will earn you 15, and a third place will earn you 10. There is only one chance to get those points. So if you don't attend World Tournament, you can still win and be in top 10, but it does make it a lot harder if you have competitors who are going, who go to that tournament and place well. The second class of tournament are the AA Nationals. Currently, these are held in Little Rock, Arkansas, and Las Vegas, Nevada in the spring and the fall, but those can change. These points are worth approximately 3 times the amount of a regional tournament. So we have 15 points for first place, 10 points for second place, and 8 points for third. Now, you'll be able to count up to 2 of these events. So again, we have our fall nationals, our spring nationals, and if any of you are international travelers, you may be able to count points from the Pan Am Championships towards this as well. But 2 out of the 3 is the maximum that you can get for a total of up to 30 points in the national category. Now, the regional tournaments are where you're going to be most familiar, and this is where you have an opportunity to get up to 40 points from 5 different tournaments. So there are 2 different classes of tournament, a Class B and a Class A. The only difference between those 2 tournaments is Class B tend to be a little bit smaller. Now, if you go to a Class B tournament, if you get first place, you get 5 points, second place is 3, and third place is just 1. So you'll notice that compared to the world and national events, third place does not hold a high point value. Now, you will get these 5, 3, or 1 points regardless of how many competitors are in the ring. So if you are the only person in your ring, you will get 5 points for each event that you choose to compete in. Now, a Class A tournament is a tournament that's just a little larger than the average tournament. You'll see these in Chicago, sometimes in Houston or Dallas, Texas, in South Bend, Indiana. We host a couple. So that's something that you want to be aware of. Those A tournaments are worth more points. As long as you have 5 competitors or more, you will get 8 points for first place, 5 points for second, and 2 points for third. Now, one thing that's really important to note within this additional point value is it doesn't matter if those competitors are in your exact ring. So for example, if we had a division that had 20 people in it and 5 of them were doing weapons, but because we can't have 20 people in a ring, we've split them half and half, 10 in ring A, 10 in ring B. And only 3 people in one ring did weapons and 2 in the other did weapons. As a competitor, it's not your fault that the rings were split. So you will still get those maximum 8 points regardless of if all those competitors are in your ring or not. The final tournament to look at is called the Class C tournament, or the in-school tournament. And these can often get overlooked because they don't feel as official, but they are very important because they are a totally separate division and class of tournament. Now, within this tournament category, you can get 3 points for first place, 2 for second, and 1 for third, assuming that there are 5 people in your division. So you might notice that your instructor, pushes some people to compete. That way you have a full division of 5 people, and it's because without without 5 people, no one's going to earn their full points. So if you are going to tournament, do your best to compete in all the events and make sure everyone has a good tournament experience. Now, unlike the Class B through AAA tournament, there is a lot of flexibility in Class C. Black belts can compete with color belts, age divisions can be mixed, rank divisions can be mixed. It's just about having a tournament type experience. And depending on your school, these could be some of the easier tournaments you go to, or they could be some of the hardest tournaments that you go to. It again just depends on your location. Now, one thing to note is that tournament points from a Class C event must be matched by points from a B, A, AA, or AAA event. So for example, if I earn 9 points from 3 first places in a Class C event, but I haven't competed in any other tournament, I'm going to end up with 0 points because they weren't matched. If I went to one regional tournament and placed first, got 5 points, 5 of my Class C tournament points will count, doubling it for a total of 10. If I want all 9 of my C tournament points to count, I must have at least 9 points from a different tournament category. This just ensures that someone can't earn a championship title without competing against the competitors from around the area. Final note, you can see it down here on the lower right hand of the screen, that all event points are tallied separately. What that means is you're not taking your 5 best overall tournaments. You are taking your 5 best individual scores from as many tournaments as you want to go to. So in a crazy scenario, if you went to 5 tournaments and got first place in forms each time and nothing else, and then you went to an additional 5 tournaments and got first place in sparring and nothing else, you would get to count your 5 best scores from form and your 5 best scores from sparring. So you would end up with 5 winning tournaments across the board, even though those things didn't happen at the same tournament. Finally, some items for consideration. Like we mentioned earlier, think about what competition year you are going to have your biggest advantage. Do you want to wait until you've been in the ring a little bit longer? In the 2nd and 3rd degree black belt ring, 3rd degrees may have some advantage just because they have competed longer and been in martial arts more than a 2nd degree. Does that mean that they have to have that advantage? Absolutely not. But if you have to decide either this year or that year, consider which year may be best. And again, age can always be a factor. If possible, front load your tournament season. Go to as many tournaments as you can in the beginning of the year, especially World Expo. This is a great way, parents, to reduce stress because you already know what your tournament landscape looks like. You're not playing catch up. You get to be proactive instead of reactive, deciding which tournaments we want to go to, who's our biggest competition. If you're lucky, you might even eliminate some competition along the way. They might look at the amount of points you have after, a month in the season and go, you know what, that's a big uphill battle to climb. Maybe I'm going to wait until the next one. Then on the flip side of that, you want to check your competition after Worlds to determine if you can catch up. For example, if you are just starting the tournament season in the fall, let's say in August or September, and you check your tournament standings in the state championship division and notice you have a competitor from another school in your state that has already been to Worlds and another tournament or two, and they've gotten first place in each of those events. They are already 36 points ahead of you. It may be hard, if not impossible, to catch up to that person for the event of state champ or for the number 1 spot in top 10. So that may be something that you need to look at to decide, do I want to have that uphill battle, or do I want to wait for another season? Now, again, the district championships has opened a way to win without having to go to some of these crazy tournaments or travel, big distances. And district championships have opened a way to get into the world competition without having to be in the top 10 point earners. But again, it is just something to look at. Every division will be completely different. If you are in an adult division or a special needs division, you may have some lower points to get into the world top 10. It may only take 1 tournament to become a state champion, or 1 well-placed tournament to be in the national top 10 because your division is smaller. There are other divisions where you need at least 60 to 70 points just to be in the bottom. It will vary from year to year depending on who is in your ring. So please make sure to check out your standings after the World Expo just to look at what you need. Finally, the last thing, just remember as always that competing is a privilege, not a right. And I'm going to talk about this on a couple different levels. First, for the students, for the kids, competing is a privilege. It is not a right. If you join Taekwondo for discipline and tournaments are causing you to get angry, to throw temper tantrums, to be disrespectful, or maybe you're great at tournaments, but your grades are slipping at school and your parents don't find that acceptable. Parents, I hope that you can be strong enough to walk away from the tournament circuit when those things happen. Now, this is again a really difficult thing, especially at the end of a season. If it's right before your first tournament and your child's, turning in a bad report card, it's easy to say, you know what, we're not going to go to this tournament. You haven't earned it. But when you are 90% of the way through a season that has taken you across the country, that you've put hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars into, it may be harder to make those decisions. So make sure that you have set your boundaries as a family to determine what you will and will not do. For grades, attitude, and also competitors, for judging help. As a reminder, if you are 14 years old or older, it is your responsibility to be at the tournament from judges meeting until the end to make sure that the competitors have enough judges for their rings. If you leave tournament early without permission, that can be a reason that your points will be revoked. Parents, usually the attitude issues don't come from our students, they come from the parents. It's fewer and far between than most sports you will see, but it does happen from time to time. Please remember that both your school owner, the tournament host, or even the ATA competition board in general have the ability to eject a competitor from tournament because of the behavior of their parents. I encourage you guys to make sure that you are setting the example for your students on the way you want them to behave when they feel that things are not fair. This is especially true when you have a judge who does something that you completely disagree with. Maybe the judge is even wrong. They totally missed a point on a sparring, or their understanding of the form is, let's just pretend it's totally wrong. There will be a time in your parenting of your teenagers, when they get to those teenage years, that they are going to think that you're wrong. And sometimes you might be. But the way that you decide to treat the judges in that discord is probably the way that your teens are going to be treating you. So just keep that in mind as you are, going through the ups and downs of, the emotions of a tournament season. Finally, for our school in particular, and many schools in the ATA as well, we have the ability to determine whether or not you are allowed to go to a tournament. So please remember that you must represent the school well. This might have to do with, the attitude that your student or the parent has during competition. It also has to do with being good standing in the school. So if you are struggling to, have good classroom attendance, or if you're, behind on monthly tuition, something like that, we don't want to put you in a situation that's going to be negative or misrepresent the school. So those are all different reasons why we might, as a school, decide you're not able to go to this tournament. And I just want every competitor to know that that is the school's right, it is your parents' right, and it's your responsibility, competitors, to make sure, again, that your attitude is top notch. Final thing, to pre-plan this tournament to make sure it's a great experience. Number one, pre-plan your spending, parents. Winning is addictive, especially when you lose. If anyone's ever played a slot machine or been to Las Vegas before, you know how easy it is to say, well, just one more. Just one more. Set a budget, stick to it. It's a great way to make sure that you're not stressing out your family, because anytime that money stress leaks into competition stress, it is a formula for an explosion that we don't want. Please make sure that competition is not about winning and losing, but about learning and growing. This is as true when students are winning as it is when they are losing. A lot of parents understand that we need to not make it about winning and losing when your child does poorly. They understand, I need to learn, I need to grow, what did I take from this situation? But it is equally important when your child is winning. At Star Martial Arts, you might hear us talk about Dr. Carol Dweck and her research on the growth mindset. And if you've never heard this before, what her research showed is that when you praise someone for doing well, whether it's for winning, for being strong, for having a high kick, there is a subconscious mind talk that happens where children especially start to become afraid to take risks. If you tell your kid, I'm proud of you because you got that gold medal, that is so awesome, you won first place, let me give you a hug, that seems so harmless. But in the back of your child's mind, their subconscious is thinking, I am valued because I won. And that means I'm going to be devalued if I lose. It's going to make them not want to push themselves to try something new. It's going to make them scared to compete, and it's going to hurt their emotional well-being when they lose. The biggest thing you want to do is tell your child, I am so proud of you because of how hard you worked. You got first place because of the training that you put in. I'm glad that you took that risk. Make sure you're promoting their effort and their growth, not just their results. Finally, as you go out and compete, go out, make some friends, create some tradition so that the tournament is more than just the 15 minutes of competing. If, again, your whole experience is solely based on that small competition moment, that can be incredibly stressful for both you and for the child. But if you know you get to go out with friends afterwards, you get to have a parent-child moment, those are all great experiences that make it a little bit more holistic and not just about that small moment of competition. Some tips for parents as you're helping your kids practice: create a structured practice routine. That way you don't have to fight about it. Don't decide, hey, you're going to practice right now, or there's a tournament coming up, let's do extra now. Just have it be a daily, a semi-daily thing to say, from here, Mondays through Fridays, from 6 to 7:30, this is going to be your practice time. The end. And we don't discuss it again. We don't argue about it. It just makes it very simple to be the parent who is a reminder, but not the coach. Which brings us to our next point: is be the parent, not the coach. You have an instructor for a reason. You pay your Taekwondo school for a reason. And one of the biggest reasons is so that you don't have to get into fights with your kids about what's right and what's wrong in competition. Make sure that you don't help your kids unless they ask for help. Now, if you're a parent who knows all the rules and you can tell that your child's stances need some work, wait for them to ask you, Mom, Dad, what can I do to improve? That information will be received so much more, because it doesn't matter what you know if your kids aren't listening to you. Make sure to take some time to either get private lessons, go to a competition class, versus just going to all the tournaments that you can. Sometimes families think that more is better, and they will go to more tournaments to try to earn those first place points. But if you go to tournaments and don't place well, it's a waste of your time and energy at times. And from a financial standpoint especially, it's much easier to get a couple private lessons than it is to pay for tournament costs, spectator fees, parking, travel, hotel, whatever else that may be. So make sure you consider some private lessons and put those into your tournament budget. Finally, don't get worked up over the scores. Remember that scoring is completely relative. There are times where your child might get 999, and there are times where your child might get 665. And as long as that score is a first place score, it makes no difference whether the score was high or the score was low. Sometimes judges just judge differently. Me personally, I am a low scoring judge. So I may be on the exact same page with my corner judges, and their scores might be 8, 6, 8. And then the next person goes and it's 7, 5, 7. And we are on the same page all the way through. Then we get to a competitor who was just like that 8, 5, 8 competitor, or that 8, 6, 8 competitor, and we go, he's almost exactly the same. Should we go higher or lower than that last person? Because we need to determine a first and second place. And if, as the low judge, I decide to go down and the other two judges decide to go up, he might end up with a score of a 959. That seems like an incredible drop, and parents get really upset when that happens. But it's really no different than if competitor A had a 777 and competitor B got an 868. It is just the judge moving up 1 point up or 1 point down from wherever they were already at. As always, if you have a question, you are welcome to ask it. I would encourage all of our competitors to ask your judge and just say, thank you so much for judging me. Can you tell me what I can improve on? Your judge has their absolute right to tell you, I'm sorry, go back to your instructor. They will help you out. It's a way to make sure that conflict doesn't arise between different schools and instructors. But if you would like to ask and your judge would like to tell you, feel free, and you can bring that information back to the school owner. You may agree with it, you may disagree, but it is a way to know why you got judged on what you did. So that's everything I have for today. I know it was a long seminar, but I really appreciate you guys coming down with me. If you have any other questions, you are always welcome to talk to your program director or your chief instructor about competing. I can't wait to see you in the leadership program and at the next tournament. Have a great